Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is radiation spikes and drones. What's really going on? Now, I know with the issues going on in New Orleans and Las Vegas, all this radiation and spikes and drones has kind of come off the radar, but it's still important. And if you do want to keep your life savings when the money reaches, as Shane Warren said, would be blowing in the wind, worthless as leaves, then it would be a very good idea for you to call 800-200-GOLD and just check with them. Say, okay, here's my situation. Am I safe? Is this okay? Or would you have a suggestion? And maybe they do, maybe they don't. Especially if you have a 401k or an IRA, these guys can help you put it into gold, not paper, gold or silver. And of course, Shane Warren was told silver is going to skyrocket far more than gold. Anyway, let's get on. So, with the information I'm going to share with you today, I need to say I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be a doomsayer or a doom and gloom person here, okay? And so I just want you to understand my heart. So let me just take a second and back up and tell you the primary thing that I'm called to do. And that is, I'm called to warn America. I believe that I'm supposed to tell America that she is the mystery Babylon, Revelation 18. She will fall. And to raise up an end-time army of prophecy teachers working miracles to win thousands upon thousands to Christ and to find massive amounts of oil in Israel and other things. But that's a pretty good overview. Now, in 2003, an incident happened that I think is very important for my life, and I think it's important for you to understand. If you want to know who I am at my heart and why I do some things I do, this is going to explain it. I remember this day specifically. I went down to KCRO 660 AM, a radio station in Omaha, that afternoon. And I was being interviewed on our program that aired at 4 o'clock. And I was talking about a speaker, which I don't remember. I'd have to look up which one it was. It's not important. And someone called in and attacked me on the radio. I handled it okay. But that already, I was feeling already attacked, my point is. Then I went to the program or the meeting that night. And in those days, it took us about 100 people just to break even on it. We only had 25 show up. I remember it specifically. And I remember I was having to keep myself from falling. I was having to keep myself from getting down. And what I do is not easy. 25 people there, and I thought to myself, Lord, I don't even know how I'm going to pay our sleeping room, much less pay for this meeting room, which I will have to write them a check for before I leave. So I was upset. And I remember calling Leslie. At the time, we were living in Topeka. And so I called her from the hotel in Omaha. And I said, I need you to pray for me. I'm struggling. And I'm struggling to keep my attitude up. And I don't want to get down and depressed. And so I need you to pray for me. And I remember part of her prayer that night was that God would speak to me and just show me if I'm still supposed to be doing this prophecy club stuff, or is it time for me to go do something else? I was making good money before prophecy club started. Maybe I need to go do something else. And so I prayed too, Lord, if I'm supposed to do this, speak to me and show me. I want to know for sure. This was the dream, very powerful dream. So in my dream that evening, I checked into a hotel, but was immediately went to my car. My heart was very heavy and was in confusion about what direction to go, feeling the need to hear from God exactly what He wanted me to do. I had the same feeling in the dream as I was going to sleep, and I just needed to hear from God what He wanted me to do. Just, tell me. I'll go do it. So I got in my car in the dream, and I drove down the street to a small mission church similar to a Salvation Army, but it was not a Salvation Army. I just wanted to go in, get alone, and just pray and seek the Lord a minute. When I walked in, there was a man at the front chapel speaking, about 40 men in the room. He was speaking to them. There was another man walking to each person, handing out a piece of paper. A man on the front row asks, why do we have to go to this memorial? So this is what I walked into. The man replied, "You have to go." And then the man on the second row said, "Well, what is it?" The speaker replied, "It is a memorial to a Romanian pastor named Duduman. Go see it. You'll really like it." About that time, the man handing papers finally reached me and handed me one. It was a paper that they had to get a stamp from the memorial proving that they went and saw the memorial, then they could come back and hand it in, and then they could eat. As you know, many of the missions make people listen to the sermon before they get the free food. One of those type deals. And the man said to me, "You have to go." I said, "Nah, I didn't come here to eat. I just came to pray." But the man stepped closer and said, "You have to go." The man got so close he invaded my comfort zone, so I stepped back a little bit. He commanded, "You have to go." I said, "Dumitru Duduman, is that who you want me, or is that who you're talking about?" And the man says, "Yes, you have to go see it." I said, "Nah, I don't have to go. I just came to pray. Besides that, I know all about him anyway." But then the man stepped closer. I remember he had the piece of paper. I don't have a piece of paper handy, and he crumpled it up as he pushed it against my chest. I mean, the paper crumpled up. I mean, he punched me in the chest with it. The man stepped closer, pushing me back even further to the point of irritation, and said, "You have to go." Now, I'm going to read this next part. I want to make certain they get it right. But I said, "Dumitru Duduman? You talking about Dumitru Duduman, the Romanian pastor who smuggled Bibles in Romania and Russia for 30 years and caught, put through 5 months of torture, culminating in them putting him on the electric chair, and God sending me into America to give them a warning that trouble will start with an internal revolution started by the communists. Some of the people start fighting against the government be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Nicaragua, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, make two of the countries was attacked, defeat America in 1 hour. Is that the Dumitru Duduman you're talking about?" And the guy then punched me again with it and says, "Yes. You have to go." And at that point, it just exploded. It came right out of here. Exploded and came out of me and said, "I am Dumitru Duduman." And at that point, I started to get emotional again. At that point, I just fell back in the chair behind me and I just started weeping. And then I woke up from the dream, weeping again, because I knew God had spoken to me. And he said, "Stan, you have to carry Dumitru Duduman's message. You have to tell the people what is coming to America, because one of these days you're going to like it." Now, how does that relate to you? I don't think he just handed the message to me. For some 3 years, Dumitru Duduman traveled left to right, up and down, all across America, speaking to all kinds of radio and TV stations and churches. And as far as I know, well, at least emails I get, I'm told I'm about the only one that ever mentions him. Once in a while, somebody else mentions him kind of in passing. But I think if you believe that, I think you are a watchman. If you watch Prophecy Club, even on an occasional basis, you are a watchman. Nobody could get through what I say on the Prophecy Club that's not a watchman. You couldn't listen to it. So you are a watchman. And I'm called to raise up an army of end-time prophecy teachers working sevenfold miracles. Now, that's the point that I want to get to, but I want to say that because I'm about to encourage you to do some things. I want you to know my heart. I want you to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I got this email, and I want you to start at the bottom with me, and this kind of lit my fire for the program today. So this came in from a guy named Joe. He says to me, "Hi. The so-called drones looking for suitcase nukes are probably not even real. How can they be real when they don't even have a heat signature? The whole looking for nukes theory could just be a scam and a deception." Now, I hadn't thought of that. Speaking with local law enforcement, the reporter told a police drone had been launched to try and intercept some of the aircraft. Those efforts had been complicated by the fact that the identified drones don't appear to give off a heat signature. Oh, I hadn't heard that. It's something we've had our hands on. It's not something we've experienced, the official said. So I emailed back and I said, the drones may be the patsy or the excuse when the suitcase nukes hit or go off to be able to say, Yeah, well, we were looking for the suitcase nukes or some kind of radioactive something sent out to us by, and then fill in the blank. Is that Iran? Is that Russia? They're going to blame it on somebody with some kind of organization or nation as a patsy. In other words, a patsy is someone that didn't do it, got blamed for it. But I was told in the dream, which I'm about to read to you, that aside from who plants or who they blame it on, international bankers or the Moloch ball worshippers are the people behind it. As perhaps you recall this particular picture. The man in the center is Lee Harvey Oswald. As he was being shot, if you look, the man's got a pistol in his hand, and that's the very moment he was shot. But just before this, he was interviewed on TV and he said, I'm a patsy. In other words, he's saying that it's blamed on me, but I didn't really do it. And frankly, I have lost, and I think most of us have lost a lot of confidence in, I'm not going to say the three-letter agencies, but I'll just say in general, our government. We've lost a lot of confidence that they will tell us the truth. Now, here's what I do know is happening. On 3/9 of 21, I heard massive arrests. Then 11/11/24, I heard medical. So that tells me two things. That tells me that the massive arrests are coming. They are coming. I don't know when, but they are coming. Second thing is it tells me is medical tells me personally I better get some medical supplies, and I have. But also, if you listen to Prophecy Club, you believe some of the things we've been telling you, I think it's also telling you. Perhaps it's maybe you, perhaps it's maybe some of your family members, maybe it's some of your neighbors. But what he's saying is it's time to get some medical equipment, some supplies, and I'm going to say it's probably for burns because nuclear is burns more than it is radiation, okay? So here it is, January 9th, 2005. I remember this specifically too. I was falling asleep, and I asked the Lord to show me the next 9/11 attack. And at that point, I was not thinking of suitcase nukes. We had Stanislav Lunev coming and talk to us in 1998. This is not 2005. So this is some 8 years later. I'm not paying attention, or 7 years later. So I'm not paying attention. I'm not thinking suitcase nukes. I just said, Lord, show me the next 9/11 attack. And I saw in a dream that there's going to be a series of suitcase nuclear explosions all across America. Nuclear. And he told me, regardless of who plants it or who they blame it on, the people behind it is going to be international bankers that would use a series of sophisticated bombs or experts in several cities, with one hitting a regional bank, destroying their records and their backups, and this will put billions of dollars into the hands of the international bankers while throwing the U.S. economy into a free fall. And you can get the DVD, the next 9/11, and you can watch it instantly at watchprophecyclub.com. You can also join Fast Gap by go to prophecyclub.com, slide to the bottom. You can join it for Fast Track, Praying for Prophecy Club, or Fast Gap, or both of them. Fast Gap is Praying for America. Now, in that we know this is coming, I'd strongly recommend you get some of these potassium iodide pills. When a nuclear device is detonated, the wind blows the radioactive powder settling on everything. You cannot avoid getting it if it blows in your direction. But a simple fix is to immediately take potassium iodide pills, which floods your thyroid with good iodine, keeping the radioactive iodine out. $20 will save a person's life. You need 1 bottle per person per exposure for everyone from infant to adult. Available 10 bottles for a gift of $150, which is what I'd recommend, even if you're just single, living by yourself. You want to have some extra bottles for other people around you. Shelf life 5 to 8 years, potentially more if you refrigerate or freeze it. Now, reason I say that is this came out, if you look over at the top left, it's posted 12/9 of 2024. This is your federal government, and it's asking for people to find and sell it, potassium iodide tablets. That's what I was just talking about. They want the 65 milligram tablets in blister packs of 20, but they had a deadline, December 21, 24. They had to be supplied to them. Now, Why the rush? Do they know something we don't know? They want to buy 224,601 packages of 20 tablet blister packs. Why would the government be buying those if something's not coming? So this tells me if the government's ordering 224,000 of them, I better get some myself. Again, prophecyclub.com, 10 for 150. Now, let's get on. The reason this is important, this article tells you that there are radiation alarms starting to go off, Geiger counters starting to go off. This one also tells you radiation levels have spiked in New York. And this one also tells you in New York City and in New Jersey. And I thought I had the one there for Albany, California. I guess, anyway, that's spiking too. And there's probably some other places that's spiking. Stan, what do you think's happening? I think that these 50 lost in Russia suitcase nukes that Stanislav Lunev said he was part of a team that was smuggling them into the United States in the 80s, I think that they're pulling them out. And when they pull off the radioactive lead cover or concrete, whatever it is, and that radiation gets out, it sets off Geiger counters in the city. And the Geiger counters get set off, and the government doesn't know about it because government's not in on this. This is Molochs. These are the international bankers. And so it sets off the Geiger counters, and they say, what's going on? And they're sending up drones. Now, are they all drones, or are some of them holograms? Anyway, I recommend you get one of these. And I got one right here. You want to have one of these on every one of your cars. They also make them for your home. That way, when a suitcase nuke goes off, if it's close enough to you, it doesn't fry all the computer chips in your car and make your car worthless. Then you can get you an ox or maybe a couple of horses and pull your car, but it's not going to start. So if you want your car to run when nobody else's does, that'd be a very good idea. Also, and I've got a satellite phone over here. I didn't hand that, but you want to have a satellite phone because the cell phones, even if the cell phone works, the cell phone network, those towers, they're not going to work. So having a satellite phone is a very good idea. And you can see the prices are pretty reasonable down there. For a satellite phone, not a bad idea. Use the promo code PROPHECY. Now, this next lady here, I hesitate to even put her on there, because she has so much inside information. I've heard her speak several other times, and I've elected not to put her on the program. I've elected not to interview her because, frankly, I was afraid of getting taken off because she has such inside, such top level, such good information. And I have carefully picked over what I'm saying. But anyway, it says the corruption has been cleaned up. The corruption that has to be cleaned up, she says, is huge. Take the recent announcement of royalties being paid to the government health agency. And she explains what are that. Then I'm going to skip that. She says, but if you connect the dots with these, and I'm going to skip the names there, the announcement of, I'm going to skip that name, paying royalties, we are paying them billions of dollars to poison the American people and bankrupt the country. There is no wonder why, I'm going to skip that word, and that word, nervous of Bobby Kennedy Jr. Keep in mind, this is just one broken piece of a big corrupt government. Now, this lady knows what she's talking about. Let me read the next part. This will raise your eyebrows. CAF, that's her name, which I'm not mentioning, says, look at Doge. It's auditing first. It's auditing the IRS. She says, if you knew the government was missing $21 trillion, and it is, you would go to the federal and audit them. We are going to go over to the New York Fed and the Treasury and look at the bank accounts and find out where the money went and to get it back, right? Remember, I was told massive arrests. And this was back in 21. Okay, in 21, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about immigrants. We're not talking about immigrants. Yes, the immigrants, a bunch of them are going to be deported. But we're talking about people like this, like the IRS. like the Federal Reserve, like Congress, like senators. Those are the kind of people that I think is going to be arrested. So why would they audit the IRS? Because Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, says the American people who owe $7 trillion in unpaid taxes, there's only one reason you audit the IRS, and that's because you want to collect the $7 trillion. You know, the IRS has never been audited. The Federal Reserve has never been audited. There's folks that says it needs to, but it's never happened. Now, I could go in and say some things, but then I might get taken off again. So I'll avoid them. My point being is we're getting really close to some really big fulfillments, some really bad things, and I would recommend you get prepared. She also says look up for the push for a digital ID. Now, we've talked about that a lot. It equals slavery. It's being pushed by the deep state control team. She says that the Freedom Team will push to keep cash alive. That's the good guys, will push to keep cash alive. Everyone can do that by using cash more. But the big danger in 25 is going to be rising inflation. The real inflation rate is really around 10%. And she says that there's going to be a big market correction coming because the stock market is in a bubble. And for that, I'll recommend you call 800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. Look at, as you know, Lindsey Williams says that if your money is in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. In other words, if you're, and I don't know, but perhaps you have stock market investments, and perhaps they are paper. Perhaps you have 401k, IRA, perhaps they are paper. I'm only saying, if it's only in paper, if you cannot tangibly hold it, or tangibly know where it is and go pick it up, then I think you're in a very risky position. I can't give financial advice other than to say call 800-200-GOLD. Look, don't lose your life savings over this. Don't do it. Now, this is interesting. I thought this would include this. Comes from Jack Straw, whoever that is, but it says the Supreme Court ruling, hardly anyone noticed that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. won the case against the pharmaceutical lobbyists. In the ruling, the Supreme Court confirms that damage caused by the something I can't say is irreparable. As the Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States, there are no further appeals, and the appeals have been exhausted. This is the point I want to get to. Nuremberg Code is now valid. Well done, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Once again, the truth prevails. What's he saying? He's saying that there's about to be a bunch of people arrested. That's what he's saying. He's saying that everything is set. I wish I could tell you more. I wish I could reveal. All I can tell you is that, brothers and sisters, you better get ready. That you better, our world's about change. If you don't have a water filter, right now we have them on special at prophecyclub.com. Have several different kinds. Go there and check it out. And if you do not have food, and I'm not talking about food just for you. Look, when your neighbors come knocking on the door and they find out you have food and you don't have food for them, guess what's going to happen? They're going to take your food. And we as Christians want to be able to say, yeah, come on. I got food for everybody. And here's the way you do it. I believe that this is God's long-term emergency storage food plan. In the 7 years of plenty, they stored up 20%. In the 7 years of famine, Joseph, the pyramid days, and all the pharaohs, they fed the world with wheat. Bible says corn, but in those days they called wheat, they called it corn. But the word says corn, but Ron White says actually it was wheat. Why? Because wheat is, in my opinion, the primary thing that we humans are supposed to be eating. Joseph's Kitchen can show you how to feed one person 1 year for about $1,000. Can't beat that. No place I've seen. And if you use promo code prophecy, someplace in there, there's a discount. Anyway, what you want to do is get yourself a machine package And then a food supply package, depends on how much you want. I'd recommend you get more than you think you need. I mean, the wheat is packaged in nitrogen. It's good for at least 25 years that we know of. Go check that out. Get yourself prepared. Also, I heard medical, and you see this thing in the top center burn bucket? I got one of those. I got a couple of other things too. You want to at least have a burn bucket because there's about to be a bunch of Americans burned. And when they come knocking on your door, you want to be able to say, come on in. I got food, I got clean water, and we'll take care of your burns. Hopefully you can. I wouldn't be very good at that. But anyway, the point is, brothers and sisters, last days are here. Not a joke. Get prepared. Okay, the very best offer we have ever had at the Prophecy Club is 40 books for a gift of $100. That is How Pre-Trib Won, Tribulation Secrets in Daniel, God's Warnings to America, Miss the Mark, and The Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy. I'll explain. As I've said many times, in 2017, I memorized the book of Revelation. I got 30 revelations, 2 visions, and an audible voice. God showed me a secret door, the word first fruits, which is found in Leviticus and also Revelation, that links the feasts to the prophecies of Revelation. And perhaps for the first time, Revelation can be understood. One prophetic word said, there's a lock. I put over a word in the book of Revelation. I'm going to open it to you. It will turn many books written on the end time message into obsolete books. That's this book. Secondly, I put together a collection of the very best prophecies from 32 years in Bible prophecy. Dumitru Duduman, Michael Boldale, Leslie Johnson, Henry Groover, Shane Warren, Terry Bennett, Maurice Sklar, Augusto Perez, Doug Metzger, Bree Keaton, and more in God's Warnings to America. Also, how do you talk to people about the mark of the beast, especially if they worship another god? Well, simple way is give them this book. It's a quick read. Takes about 3 hours to read it. But if they'll read 2 or 3 pages, they'll probably read the book. And if they read the book, they will never take the mark of the beast. It explains both the mark of the beast and also the number of the name, and it has these pictures in the book. Finally, How Pre-Trib Won. This book explains the truth about the rapture. It gives 4 foundations for the real truth about the rapture. It also answers 25 pre-trib questions, 1 for $20, each one of these typically, but don't do that. We offer them in shrink-wrap sets. The very best deal is go to prophecyclub.com and get the entire 40-book set for $100. I didn't cover every verse in the book of Daniel, didn't need to. I just covered the verses that has to do with us end-time saints. And it's called Tribulation Secrets in Daniel, 1 for $20, 10 for $30, 20 for $50 at prophecyclub.com.